The book of the Revelation, the only book in the Bible personally dictated by the Lord. A lot of people think that it cannot be understood, but I find the book of the Revelation really one of the easier books to understand. But to understand the book of the Revelation, you have to divide it properly. I'm going to suggest a way of looking at the book of the Revelation that you've not used. We're going to make a library out of this book. Now, an ordinary book you'll read from front to back, and it'll have a thread that'll go all the way through. The book of the Revelation, that's not true. Each chapter is a little different. We're going to call it a library of books, 22 books in the bookcase called the book of the Revelation. The Lord himself makes the division in chapter 1 and in verse 19. He tells John, "Write the things that thou hast seen, the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter." Now, the Lord's telling John to write three things, past, present, and future. Now in verse 3 says, "Blessed is he that readeth, and they that heareth the words of this prophecy, and keep the things which are written therein." The only book in the Bible where God says he's going to bless you if you will read it or listen to it. Now certainly he's not going to bless you in reading something you can't understand. The book of the Revelation is a very understandable book, but you'll have to look at it as a library. For example, the three divisions. The first division is one chapter, so we're going to call that a book. Chapter number 1 is a book all about the past. Now the next book is going to be 2 chapters, 2 and 3, and that's all about the present church age. So you start in chapter 2 through verse number 3, verse 22, the end of it, and you have the entire church age that we're living in, beginning with the Lord when he started the church all the way until the church comes to the resurrection and the rapture. Verse number 22, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches." And then the church is never mentioned again in the plural in the Bible, ever. You see, today the church is made up of bodies all over the world, but when the resurrection and the rapture takes place, then we'll find that the church will be unified with the Lord, and it'll be a different period of time. So that's the second book in the library, chapter 2 and chapter 3. Now chapter number 4, verse number 1, is the coming of the Lord. "The Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God. The dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words." Well, that's the coming of the Lord, the resurrection and the rapture. Where does it take place in the book of the Revelation? Chapter 4 and verse number 1. John says, "After this I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven, and the first voice I heard was as it were of a trumpet, talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter." He says, immediately I was in the Spirit. He went up, he saw the throne. You see, chapter number 4 is all about the things that we're going to see as Christians, the 24 elders representing all of God's people from all ages. But this chapter number 4 is quite different from chapter 3 and 2. That's all about the church present age. Now, chapter number 4, this is all in the future. And that one chapter has to do with what we're going to see as Christians when the Lord comes back. Chapter number 5, this is another book in this library on the Revelation. Chapter 5 is a book sealed with 7 seals. In this, we're going to find everything that's going to take place in the future. Nothing has happened or will happen until after chapter 4, verse number 1, the coming of the Lord. Everything is now future. None of these things are happening yet. Will not even begin until the Lord comes back, and then we're going to see these things. So chapter 4 is what we're going to see. Chapter 5, this is what happens to those that are left behind. So we're going to treat it like a book. You read each chapter as a separate book, and then it's going to make sense to you. You start in chapter 1 and go through chapter 22, and you'll find there's so many different things, and it becomes confusing. and you'll say, who can understand the book of the Revelation? Well, chapter number 6, this book is open. I call this particular book the Table of Contents. The 7 seals, 6 of the seals will be opened in chapter number 6, and when each seal is open, something is going to take place. But remember, it's in the future. This is just telling us what's going to happen. The first thing is a white horse, and a man on this white horse. And it describes him, the fact that a crown is given unto him. The white horse represents that he's a man of peace. He has a bow but no arrows. He conquers peacefully. This man is the Antichrist, but he's not revealed yet as Antichrist. The world doesn't realize that he's the Antichrist. The next seal is open, and it's about this same man. But now we see him from a different light. In chapter 13, it tells all about how that he is wounded unto death and the deadly wound is healed. And that's why we have the red horse. This is a man now of war, the shedding of blood. So you see, chapter number 6 is a table of contents. Don't try to fit the events in with the other events of the Bible and the book of the Revelation. It just won't work. This is simply telling of the future, the things that are going to happen. And then the next 2 horsemen, the next 2 seals, have to do with his program. So the 4 horsemen have to do with Antichrist and his programs. But now treat this chapter as a single book. We'll call it the Table of Contents, what we're going to find now in the future. Well, chapter number 7, same thing. The last seal is opened, and we find silence in heaven about space of half an hour, and then we're going to find the judgments of God. The first judgments, the trumpet judgments of God. And it's going to cover 2 chapters, or chapter 7 has to do with salvation. And we're going to find this particular chapter about who's going to be saved, how many are going to be saved. When the 4th seal is open, it gives us an idea about how many people are going to be saved during the tribulation period. So you're going to treat chapter number 7 as another single book in the library. Now chapter 8 and 9, the trumpet judgments, 2 chapters. This will be part of the library, but you have to keep those 2 chapters and study them together. 2 chapters, for they're connected. But after that, well, we have other things. Now we're going to end this particular segment right now, and then the next segment we'll go ahead and take up where we've left off.